So as we've heard, level 0 from Monday with some modifications. We're now joined by Scotland's Clinical Director, Professor Jason Leitch. And Professor Leitch, high numbers of daily cases over the past couple of weeks, more than 500 in hospital with COVID today. How comfortable are you with these changes?
Yeah, I'm comfortable, John. I think it's gradual forward momentum, but it's not a free-for-all. It's not all bets are off and we're all back to normal. I think that's the First Minister acting correctly on advice, applying judgment, hers and the Cabinet's, on the advice she's received, not just from public health, but also from the economic advisors and the society advisors. I think it's about the right level.
There have been so many rules over the past months, indeed, and still we heard Linda Ball talking about potentially some confusion over the new rules as well. How convinced are you that people, A, know the rules and B, aren't already just following their own rules?
Well, one of my roles, John, with you has been to try and explain that. The level 0 rules are available online and we'll be doing lots of communication over the next little while. The fundamental rules are known, aren't they? It's better to be outdoors than indoors, small numbers are better than big numbers, and be careful. Keep the heat, as the First Minister has said more than once. Get vaccinated, get tested if you've got symptoms and self-isolate, and follow the rules as best you can. The exact numbers, if you want to know them, are online, but fundamentally in your house you can have 8 from 4 households. In hospitality you can have 10 from 4 households because it's a slightly more controlled environment. And outdoors, you can have 15 from 15 households. That feels like a big change. So you can have quite large groups now in outdoor hospitality.
Just on that point, the government said they were considering requests that changes to wedding numbers could actually be introduced by this weekend. Is that likely?
Yeah, that's been rejected. So the First Minister said today that these measures would be introduced by Monday. So 200 at a wedding or a funeral or a life event by Monday. And I know that's disappointing to people who have weddings planned for this coming weekend, but it's just the state of the pandemic. It's where you began. We've had 2,600 cases announced today. For the last couple of days, we've had over 2,500 for some days. We've got to do this gradually. And that's really hard for some people who are waiting for those changes because they've got specific things to happen. Of course it is.
We've heard the First Minister say these are the least amount of restrictions since the pandemic began, effectively. What chance of having to backtrack, do you think?
Yeah, I'm really hopeful we won't have to do that. And it's one of the reasons for a gradual approach. The WHO say you should do this cautiously and gradually. And one of the reasons for that is so you don't bounce in and out of lockdowns. You can see those who follow the pandemic closely will have noticed in the Netherlands, opened, now 3 weeks later, closing down again and closing pretty restrictively compared to where we are just now. So our hope, and much of this is judgment, John, it's not an exact science. Much of what we're announcing today is to enable us to do that. Forward momentum, be careful, still wear your face covering, still wash your hands. COVID is not done with us, particularly in those young age groups who aren't fully protected. Get your vaccine and follow the rules.
Briefly, the First Minister suggesting that we will move beyond level 0 by the 9th of August. You're talking about forward momentum. That's only 4 weeks away. How confident are you that we will actually manage that?
I'm really hopeful that if we've seen what looks like a stabilisation and maybe even a deceleration of our present pandemic. So if you take the last 7 days, they are lower than the previous 7 days. Single days, don't panic. It moves up and down. But if you take chunks of time, it looks as though we may have peaked at our 3rd wave. I can't tell what's going to happen next, but I'm very hopeful that the advice we'll give for the 9th of August will still be forward momentum.
Professor Leitch, thanks for joining us on the STV News.